Do you think this could be a growing trend? Like, are you among the earlier? Because I do have some Japanese fans I'm aware of, like Yutsukaya. Shout outs to Yutsukaya.
Mm-hmm.
Is this going to be a growing trend, you think? Or are you like kind of unique?
I definitely like understand English and, your culture as well, because I've been in America for quite a while. So I know the Western kind of things going on.
Right.
So
you're more prone to Western culture than maybe your fellow Japanese players.
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
I definitely think I am in that standpoint. But in my way of thinking, I wish and I am trying to think about how to like make Eastern players and Western
like
players.
Japanese, Korean, Chinese.
Yes. Yeah, Chinese, everyone in our part of the world, Asia or anything, and your Western community like in Europe or America. I hope that someday like we get a really big event which doesn't really involve West or East. You just every country's dedicated like how do you say commenters are like
that
there.
Would be cool.
And you get to watch the event. That would be like so cool. That's maybe one of my like thing I want to see in the future, I think.
Right. Like, let's say, what's funny, speaking of Shmup Slam 3, so Shmup Slam 3 is available in China now because a Chinese shmupper reached out to me and was like, hey, because, China has their own rules about...
Yeah.
Anyway, so he reached out to me like, hey, I want my fellow Chinese players to be able to watch this. Can I re-upload this on our Chinese website? I think it's Bilibili. I was like, go ahead. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I was happy about it. I want more people to see this stuff. So maybe a future Shmup Slam could have like a Japanese restream. We're trying to do English. I think we did an English restream. Yeah, we did an English restream of Shmup Mania. So maybe someday we'll get a Japanese restream of Shmup Slam, which would be really cool.
That's really cool. You guys are doing like the baguette, right?
That's the French one, actually. So I am English restreaming it, though. So that one will be in French and in English.
Maybe I can like volunteer to be one of the commentators, maybe.
Which game? I'll write you in.
Oh, no, not the baguette.
Oh, okay.
No. just in general, like former topic.
I'm saying this right now. If there are any Japanese people out there who want to restream Shmup Slam in Japanese, feel completely free to do that.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
So speaking of Touhou and open license, I also wanted to ask you, is there any sort of overlap between the Touhou and arcade scene in Japan? Like, are there Touhou arcade players? Because we kind of have an overlap here. We're moving further and further towards that overlap, which makes me happy. Baguette is a perfect example. Baguette's actually a Touhou group that's now overlapping with arcade. So yeah.
Okay.
And then Shmup Slam featured Touhou runs, right? We're trying to make that merged happen. Is that happening at all in Japan?
I don't see the how do you say events on Japanese, just because like I really don't care much about it in like shooting game perspective. Speaking of like arcade and Touhou, there was like a really big beef between those two genres.
Oh, okay. I want to hear about this.
Arcade game peoples who like grew up in playing arcades have their like mindset of playing those games on an arcade centers and playing it on a stick, right? And contrary to that, Touhou players are like, they play on your home, your PC, your keyboards and whatever. Because arcade scene was really declining after like late 90s and in the early 2000s, and seeing the Touhou rise up around like 2004 no, not 2004, but yeah, it really gained popularity, and it gained like massive popularity here in Japan around like 2010. So I don't know where those like emotions come from, maybe like envy or like anger towards that, because they weren't getting like new releases on arcades.
Plus don't arcade people in Japan afraid, or they're not supposed to emulate those games, where again in the West we're just like, let it, shmup arts, let's do this, but I've heard that, like Japanese arcade players are uncomfortable with the idea of emulating the game, like Doronpachi, for example.
We are like really, I don't know, we're really uncomfortable with it. Not because it's like having like a slowdown or anything, but just because it's like completely like ripping from a ROM.
Right. And that's like a big deal in Japan,
and
right?
It's okay in like law's perspective. Like but it's not generally viewed as a good thing to do in
Right.
Japan. So yeah, there are those kind of things. And so because like the arcade scene was declining, oh sorry, I'm gonna go back to the topic, but so seeing as the arcade going decline, and I don't know if it was a envy or anything, but so there was like a really big like I don't want to say war, but Nichan,
beef.
Nichan, yeah, Nichan, back and forth between the Touhou fans and arcade cave dwelling guys. So and that didn't really go anywhere. It just like settled down after a while. But there was some beef between those two really big genres, even if it was a shmup, because like Touhou are kind of weebish. Sorry if I'm using the wrong term, but
that's the right term.
Yeah, because I think it's, how do you say,
anime fans, right?
Anime-ish, yeah, anime-ish, and the cave games are like really hardcore.
Older anime.
Yeah, older
Ghost
anime.
in the Shell versus new anime.
Yeah. I think those kind of styles like really conflicted with
I could
each
see
other.
that kind of happens here with Western people too, a lot too. It's died down, I think, but it's still there.
Most of the people I know really don't really care that much, and to be honest, like because I'm from the Touhou places, and I migrated to Cave a bit, and then came back to Dojin recently. So being on that like side of things and seeing both ends, I think it's a really like stupid war that happened before time. But there are some beef, and I think it's settled down a bit for now because no one's really talking about it much.
But you're not seeing any kind of direct cooperation between the two. For instance, you're not going to see a Touhou game show up in a cave-centric event, maybe like Shmup Mania or something like that.
Yeah.
And you're not going to see,
I don't think
like WTN playing Touhou anytime soon or something like that.
I don't know. Maybe he's playing
there
it in
you
private,
go,
but maybe there was some beef, and I don't think there are any like overlaps on the genre itself. But the people I see really like, most of the people like really don't care that much, and I think there are people that dwell on both sides, and the is this the word correct? Like extremists, like the cave extremists and Touhou extremists are like the root of the problem.
Right, yeah.
And I think those are like 0.001% of like those populations.
And I could see how Touhou could be considered a bigger threat to the Japanese players than to most Western players, because, like, to be honest, most of us are emulating these games already. So the difference between playing Touhou and playing Cave to us is actually not that different, because we're playing them both on our PCs or on our home systems. Yeah. Whereas in Japan, it's like a pretty big difference where one guy is going to the arcade and spending $1 per credit, every day. And the other guy is playing on his home computer. And I've heard that like home computers are a lot less of a thing in Japan than they are in America, where like America, everyone has a home computer.
Yeah.
But I've heard in Japan, like they're not nearly as common. Like more people tend to have like consoles and not actually own a computer, which is like what? But yeah.
Yeah, because we have like
you guys
now.
just went full Apple.
And iPads, right? I don't care about Apple, but yes.
One last thing I want to ask is, have you ever seen an Xbox in person? Do people actually play Xbox over there? Like the shmup people?
Yeah.
Because I've always been interested in that.
Okay, so I really don't have much friends that play shmups. I only have like one or two.
Me too.
Within like 10 friends. And those guys who play shmups has an Xbox on their side, X360. Yes, I have that too as well.
Okay, so it's probably somewhat available there then, right? Because I've heard funny stories where have no idea what an Xbox is in Japan and stuff like that. And it's like, is it that bad, or do y'all know what Xboxes are?
It's I think it's a really minority here, not that common. A bit like compared to like PS and Nintendo games. It's like the share is like, I don't know, 1 to 3% in console shares, maybe. I have never seen any other friends owning an Xbox other than like the guy who plays shmups or the other two friends I have who played Left 4 Dead
There you go.
long
Yeah.
ago. Yeah, Left 4 Dead and Halo
What about
and
Ninja Gaiden? You got to have the
whatnot.
Xbox for that,
Ninja
man.
Gaiden, yeah, too. Yeah, that too. I didn't have any friends that played Ninja Gaiden, but I know for a fact. So
So a few more questions before I head out. One is, what are kind of your future plans with the genre? You know, you're killing it in Helsinker. What are you looking forward to in the future?
I wrote this down, but I had a really like huge aspiration before I got into shmup hellhole, and that was to become a world record holder for any game, anything that made you want to play. I wanted to become number
That's
one,
awesome.
and yeah, simply managed to do that now because I currently hold that. My future plan is like I have this like appreciation for Helsinker a lot because it made me number one, and like I have many connections between many people regarding Helsinker. So I want to like giving it back to the game itself
Right. Help
for
it grow.
like my
Yeah,
appreciation.
definitely.
Yeah. So Shmup Slam was a really big step towards my that goal. I had an opportunity to like show off how good Helsinker is
Yeah.
to audiences that watch Slam. And I want to make it grow more, and I want more people to see how good that game is. So my goal is to like get in to like GDQs
Oh
or
yeah.
something,
Oh
like a
yeah.
really
That
larger
would be
events,
cool.
like big events. Yeah, and like show off how great this game is.
I need to review it for the channel. The first step is I need to figure out how to play it, and then I need to review it.
Yes. You can make a video. You can make a video
Yeah,
how
how
to
to play
play
Helsinker, and
Helsinker.
then the second video is, okay, now I'm going to review it. Every time I watch, it's been in 2 slams. Every time I watch it, I'm like, this game is so cool. I just need to figure out how to play it. I do own it too, so
It's
there's nothing stopping me. I
okay.
just got to play it.
It's just that tutorial is like wonky and really hard to
Yes.
understand at first glance, so you shouldn't like play tutorial.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some other thing for my plan is like getting more scores in Helsinki, I think. I played on Shmup Slam 3 with an autobomb setting
Hmm.
on, right? And there's another mode which disables autobombing, but like you gain more points
Oh yeah.
because you don't have autobombs. So yeah, I'm trying to grind that, and it's a pain, but I'm trying to get another new score for
So
it.
in the world of Helsinker, is there a number 2 player that's close to you? Or are you just way ahead of everyone else? Like, or is there someone on your back that you're
Um
like, okay, I gotta watch it. This guy might overpass me here.
To be honest, I think I'm running alone right now. I think I'm really
That's the world
ahead.
of shmups, though. That happens a lot.
Yeah. You know, there's like so each character has like really different designs for them. And so, to be honest, like I think there should be like a character board.
Right. Yeah.
My ship and the other person I know called Suro. He has a world record on other characters
Right.
as well.
Does the game recognize that,
So,
or does the game not recognize that?
because it's a Dojin shmup, there wasn't much people playing that harshly. There's only like one voluntarily
Yep.
scoreboard for it, and we just basically upload our like replays on that site. So to be honest, like there's not the developer didn't intend to make it like this competitive. I
Right.
think it's just the players getting stoked on it and really playing it to the brim of the brim of the bones. there's no like centralized like leaderboards for any Dojin games.
Yeah.
I think maybe there is,
I don't think
but
so.
I haven't seen any.
I don't think shmups have a centralized leaderboard at all, like anywhere.
No, because JHA isn't only in
Yes.
Japan, not for the
Yes,
world.
and
So
you have to like follow very specific things, including flying to Japan and playing in an arcade to get on there. So that's not going to really work out in the long term.
Yeah, you were talking about like those like score things with Pearl.
Yes,
older
yes.
video,
we were
podcast,
talking
right?
about Twin Galaxies and how
Twin
how
Galaxies,
busted
yes.
their scorekeeping is too. Yeah, but they're still kind of busted for shmups too, because I've been thinking about recently submitting some scores to Twin Galaxies, but they want you to basically dox yourself. So I'm like, okay, I'll never submit a score to Twin Galaxy because they want like your ID and all this. I'm like, hell no. Like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
The idea is so I guess they can come and like blow up your mailbox if they make you mad. I don't know what the idea is, but
holy shit.
I'm just kidding, but I just don't feel comfortable with that at all. So I'll never submit to Twin Galaxies either. Maybe they'll wise up and change that, or maybe they have already. I'll have to double check. But last time I heard, because I was asking Pearl about it, required you like revealing your identity. I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. Why, are you crazy? So awesome. Any other things you want to talk about before we head out for the podcast?
I want to know your perspective. What do you feel or think is different in Japan or from Japan with regards to like Western or anything like that? What was your like initial thoughts of thinking the difference in America and Japan?
Oh, okay, sure. One thing is I feel like I don't understand Japanese culture all that well, and that my culture is probably, like specifically being in Idaho, is probably very different, because like just how our social behaviors are different. And even stuff like, for example, I remember with the score glitch bounty, W10 felt that I was kind of being rude because I was being like very straightforward and direct. My personal kind of culture out here, like that is considered the correct thing to do. To be kind of like overly not getting to the point is considered evasive and kind of disrespectful. So it's kind of funny, like, so I feel like sometimes what my thoughts on like what is considered respectful is probably very counter to what Japanese people feel that's respectful. And so sometimes I worry that, there might be a big cultural clash at times, especially with my personality, where like I'm very direct to with what I feel and what I say about things. And so I think that's probably that might be the biggest hurdle. That also might be like kind of refreshing. I don't know how that works from the Japanese perspective. And I also think that just from my experience so far, and this could just be part of my own personality too, is I feel like Americans tend to, and again, the arcade's a great example of this, tend to be more directly competitive and more like aggressive type of thing. And that's kind of like, we kind of enjoy that on some level. Like, again, like the dudes, we're playing side by side. We might trash talk each other. We might like be more directly competitive with each other, call each other out, like, oh, you suck, or I'm going to beat your score or whatever. And that's like kind of part of the culture here. Whereas I understand, like in Japan, if you go into a Japanese arcade and start talking some smack, I don't know if that's going to be considered like just obscene, like you're just the biggest jerk around or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, you will be labeled like a jerk.
I've always wondered, so I've always been a little bit nervous about how some of my, I feel like I'm a pretty nice dude, but I've always wondered if, I might be considered just way too gaijin for the Japanese audience, basically. Another thing that I think is very different with Japanese culture, the shmup people that I've experienced so far in the Western, is I feel like you were saying before that there's more of a kind of tradition in the Japanese scene. There's more of a tradition like JHA, and we play on arcade and we don't emulate. And, there's like this very traditional aspect. Whereas I feel like the Western people tend to be much more willing to maybe bend some rules, or willing to like do things differently. Like, hey, we're going to emulate stuff. We're going to use video replays. We're going to do a centralized online, especially. I think this might be the biggest actually, is that Western people have to embrace online because we have no other way to interact with each other. We're thousands of miles away from each other typically. So we have to really invest in the online infrastructure of the scene. Whereas in Japan, from what I understand, there is the arcade culture where you can literally just go meet the other players in person. There's much more local.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really plays probably a huge difference between the two as well. Because, for instance, in Japan, it's not as big of a deal that there's not video sharing, because you could literally just watch the guy play the run, show up and, let me just play, and you can just sit me and watch me play. Whereas in the West, if we cannot see that run on video, we will never see it. It basically doesn't exist. I think those are kind of the biggest separations between the two. Summary, just meeting like younger Japanese players and stuff like that is shifting in Japan, where because of the arcade's decline and just the way culture is shifting, that maybe there will be a convergence between the two at some point here, hopefully soon-ish, where Japanese people might start moving more into like, okay, let's do video sharing, let's do online scoreboards, be a little bit, I don't know how emulation is going to play out there, but at least M2 is trying to help by making official emulation possible with Destiny and stuff like that. So does that sound at all accurate as someone who feel is much more expertise on a Japanese culture and with some insights on American culture?
You being direct to the point is, I think, like somewhat sometimes like regarded very like scary or like aggressive in Japanese culture, because you don't like go face up and say like, why didn't you do
exactly.
this? you never say that to other people. Like you just say, can you like do this because this?
Yes.
So you have to like ask in a really like indirect way to like really get to the point. I definitely understand where you're coming from. Yeah, I'm much more of a direct guy too, because communication is,
it can get complicated.
Tedious sometimes.
Yeah. There's a lot of shade. That's what I'm saying, because there can be a lot of shades of interpretation with that kind of stuff. And I don't do well with that. And, I just want directly what you're saying, and I'll pin you down if you don't. You know what I mean? I have a habit of like, if you're alluding to something, I will just pin you down and say, is this what you're saying? And then you have to be like, yeah or no.
Yeah. I'm much more comfortable with that kind of a standpoint, because I don't know, maybe I was just raised that way, or maybe, but most of the people in Japan, I think they will like be afraid of you, maybe.
Probably.
It's like, oh god, this guy is like really scary. Maybe
I can be polite when I have to be, but I was bringing that point up because I felt like, because it was with WTN, and I actually have an insane amount of respect for him, obviously being a Dodonpachi god. For me too, this is just my personal thing, and this may not be shared among other people, that's not just me, but I respect skill so much that someone could basically hate me, or they could like say I'm a piece of shit or dislike me. But if they were very skilled at the game, I would still respect them. Skill to me is such a powerful force that I always respect it, even if there is personal differences between two people. For instance, even if WTN thinks I'm a huge jerk, I still deeply respect him because he's such a strong player. I don't know if the Japanese people are like that as well, or how that works there, but
I think it differs people to people.
Yeah.
I'm much more the same with you, Mark, I think.
As far as my other thoughts on Japan, I deeply wish to be closer to you, Japan. I want to be closer to you because to any Japanese people out there, because you are the nexus of the genre. You are like, where it's all at, so I think everyone in the world just wants a closer relationship to the Japanese players, the Japanese companies, all that sort of stuff, because, you all are the nexus of it. So, a lot of us just deeply respect Japan for that.
Yeah, I think like in the near future, maybe like and I think this will happen, but there would be some kind of a fusion between our cultures in some way.
Because it is happening in other places, like in fighting games, that's starting to really happen.
Yeah,
like the Japanese and the American side are getting a lot more familiar with each other.
Yeah, Smash Ultimate had like Frostbite, I think. I don't
and like
Evo
much, Japan, when Evo was existing.
Yes.
On the more positive side, for Third Strike, I'm trying to remember the name, Cooperation Cup. That's starting to get more of a connection between, and I feel like that's kind of a closer analog to shmups, because Third Strike is a much more niche, historical arcade game than, like Street Fighter V or something. And I think in the last Cooperation Cup or the one before, like there was an American team that went, and there's like there's a lot more like connection between the American Third Strike people and the Japanese. It's like becoming closer and closer. Yeah. So that's something I'd love to see happen more.
These kind like shmup slams, for example, or any kind of shmup events are like a really good like bonding between these cultural differences.
I think so too, definitely.
I think it really helps out a lot for the shmup community as well.
Well, that's awesome. Well, did I answer your question?
Yeah, I understood your perspective and how you think and why you thought that Japanese and Americans were different.
Yeah, and again, some American people are not like this at all. So this also may be the force of my own personality projecting a bit. Because I'm very gaijin. There are more Japanese savvy American players out there for sure. Like I'm sure like Iconoclast and Gus. I think Gus even speaks Japanese to some degree. Trap. I think Trap's in Japan. It speaks Japanese.
Yeah, he is.
So this also could be, some of it is I might be in a minority of my own group too, because I'm just very ignorant to Japanese culture. I'm very ignorant to Japanese way of life, and I'm very American in that way. So
you can like try to understand our culture.
Yeah, that's a definite goal of mine, and especially too to like maybe get a little bit more comfortable with Japanese pronunciation and stuff, because I try my best to avoid it as much as possible, because I always sound wrong. I always sound wrong when I try to pronounce Japanese stuff. I try to always use like acronyms, or to like DOJ. I never say like Diojo, Dioji, Diojo. I remember one time Google Translate, this was before I did the channel, when I was just getting into shmups, and I was trying to learn all these names. And I just relied on like Google to tell me what they sound like. And Google, I think, thought Diojo was French or something, and it pronounced it Dioj. And I was like, Dioj, like Aju, like Dioj. And so I said Dioj for years. And then, okay, it's not actually Dioj. So that one especially I struggle with, because I mispronounced it for so long. Or I think there's other ones too. Guenge, right? That's not how you say it. I always say Guenge, but it's not right. It's like Guange, Guange. Okay. And I always say Guenge, like Wenge. Yes.
Wenge. In America, there's not like Wang, right?
Yeah. So Wang isn't
Wang kind of pronunciation, right?
Wang, I don't think. No, it'd be more like Wang, right?
Yeah.
Wenge.
Wang, right? Because WA is like much more of a way.
Yes. There's not Wang.
Yeah. Because
Yeah. And I've heard people say Guange. I'm like, is it Guange?
Oh, I see. Yeah. Silent E.
And then what about?
I understand.
What about Gradius? Is it Gradius or is it Gradius? Gradius, right?
Yeah, it's Gradius.
Ryu is Ryu. I finally learned that one correct, but we called them Ryu for years. Ryu.
It's Ryu, right?
I got Ken right, because that's an American name. I've mispronounced so many Japanese things. Oh, Pokemon. Pokemon. And it's like Pokemon?
But like everyone says Pokemon, right?
Everyone says that, right? But isn't that incorrect?
Yeah,
right. We all say Pokemon.
Yeah, Pokemon. Yeah, I grew up with Pokemon, so I really don't struggle, but
I'm trying to think of other ones too, but especially with shmups, I struggle with Diojo. I cannot do it. I'm trying to think of Daifukatsu, is that correct? I can get Daifukatsu, because it sounds a little bit more easy to wrap my mouth around than.
How about SDOJ?
Sai Diojo, right?
Yeah,
I got that one. I can do the Sai at the front of it. Struggle with Diojo, Dioju, Dioj, if you want to get.
Yeah.
So I go with DOJ as much as possible.
I understand it, so it's okay. So.
Okay, so before we lose track of this topic, I need to ask you, what is the situation with the actual arcade equipment in Japan? For example, in American arcades, it is not uncommon to go to a cabinet, the stick is busted or doesn't work very well, the buttons are screwed up, you go to feed a quarter in there, the quarter gets stuck because there's gum inside the slot. It's a risk to use a cabinet in American arcades. I imagine that in Japan arcades, this is the fantasy, that every single cabinet is very well cared for. All the buttons work just right. The sticks are replaced and fixed on a weekly basis, or how often they need to be fixed and replaced. Is that true? Or do you go and there's a bunch of broken arcade machines from time to time?
Okay, So in those like Tokyo arcade places, they always maintain every single thing. I don't know if it's daily or weekly or like skip a day or something, but they always have it maintained, and they have this like a small note that says this has been maintained on like say December 4th or something.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but like if you go to like a real like local arcade, not just in like Tokyo or Osaka, like in the big cities, but if you go like to a local place, they might have like something like broken levers or broken buttons. I've been there before, so there are some places that has those busted things. Like if you put in 100 in and it doesn't turn on, it's like what? Why?
Yep. Okay, so
Yeah.
that you don't get that in the big professional arcades, but you'll get that in the smaller rural
Yes.
arcades.
Yes, I think you'll never get that experience in like highly maintained like Tokyo, like Akihabara Hei, for example, or Ebisen or Mikado. I don't think they'll ever have those kind of problems. Even if you
Nice.
had any problems, you can ask like the staff to like, can you maintain this? And so, oh, okay.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
because the way it works in American arcades is the staff are not knowledgeable in the actual equipment most of the time. So they'd be like, "Hey, it's broken." They'd be like, "Yo, that sucks." We need to call a repair guy, and he'll be here next week to fix it. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not like the staff can come over and swap out the parts and stuff.
You guys don't have like those stocks for buttons or levers, right?
We have American buttons, American levers.
Ah,
So the interesting thing about American stuff, I'm actually going to buy one and review one on the channel here, is American levers. If you get a good one, they're actually not that bad to use, but they are extremely, extremely durable because we have this issue where people take their anger out on the machines all the time. So like American buttons are huge. They when you hit them, it doesn't look like that, but the actual button itself is like this massive thing that goes inside the cabinet. And then the sticks are these huge, heavy, I don't know what the resistance system is. It's not a spring though, but they're not that different from green sticks. They're just way heavier and way chunkier, but they still break. And yeah, it takes like a week usually or something for them to get maintained, or sometimes months.
Wow.
I've gone a month and the stick was broken. I went back a month later, the stick was still broken. So like, yeah.
Oh, that's a sad experience.
There was a mall I went to that had a Marvel vs. Capcom 3 machine with a Japanese stick and Japanese buttons. That's the one time I've ever seen that.
Wow.
Was Marvel vs. Capcom 3. The stick was ripped out. Didn't do anything. It'd been like snapped because it's a little baby Japanese stick. You know, you can't kick a Japanese stick and have it still work. They're much more sensitive, right? So and then it was just broken because, you know, American arcades don't really maintenance things. So I think the counterpart to that though is barcades, because they're usually ran by like a hipster dude who loves arcade machines. So they will normally maintain barcades, but like actual arcade machines, those are much less likely to be regularly maintained. I have been to barcades where a bunch of machines were broken still, and I was mad. So it seems to happen everywhere.
Oh man, that's a shame. That's a really hard experience.
Yeah, and sometimes the strategy is sometimes you got to play on the 2-player side. Like that's not like a strategy is I usually play on the 2-player side because the 1-player side is usually more broken than the 2-player side.
Tends to be broken.
Yeah, it tends to be more broken.
Thanks so much TwilightEX for coming on the podcast. Mark accidentally deleted himself saying goodbye, but luckily RoboJoe is always a Google search away.
Thank you. It was really fun to talk with you, Mark.